Sindbad the Sailor. After my 6th voyage, I had quite made up my mind that I would go to sea no more. I was old enough to appreciate a quiet life after all the risks I had run in search of adventure. My only desire now was to end my days in peace. With this determination strong in my mind, I was leading a life of ease and pleasure, when one day, while I was entertaining a number of my friends, an officer of Caliph Harun al-Rashid came to me and commanded me to accompany him to the royal presence. Accordingly, I went with him to the hall of audience, where the Caliph addressed me in the following words.
"We have sent for you, Sindbad, because we need your services. We have chosen you to bear a letter and many royal gifts to the king of Sindbad in return for his message of friendship."
The Caliph's command fell upon me like a thunderbolt.
"Commander of the faithful,"
I answered,
"I am ready to obey you in everything, but humbly pray you to remember that I have undergone unheard-of sufferings in all my voyages, so have vowed never again to leave Baghdad."
With this, I gave him a long account of my strange adventures. He listened to me patiently and said,
"I admit that indeed you have had some extraordinary experiences, but I do not see why they should deter you from doing as I wish. You have only to go straight to Sindbad and give my message. Then you are free to come back and do as you will. But go you must. My honor and dignity demand it."
Seeing that there was no help for it, I declared myself willing to obey. And the Caliph, delighted at having his own way, gave me 1,000 sequins for the expenses of the journey. In a short while, I set sail from Balsora and reached Sindbad in safety. When I had disclosed my errand, I was taken to the presence of the king, who greeted me with joy.
"Welcome, Sindbad,"
he cried.
"I've heard of you so often that I now rejoice to see you in flesh."
After thanking him for the honor that he did me, I displayed the Caliph's costly gifts. The king of Sindbad expressed his satisfaction at the Caliph's friendliness and entertained me royally for a number of days before he would consent to let me go. Finally, he dismissed me with many presents, and I lost no time in going on board a ship which was ready to sail immediately. For 4 days all went well, but on the 5th day we had the misfortune to fall in with pirates, who seized our vessel, killing all who resisted, and making prisoners of those who had the prudence to submit. They forced us to put on vile raiment, and taking us to a distant land, sold us as slaves. It was my good fortune to fall into the hands of a wealthy merchant, who took me home with him, clothed me properly, fed me well, and asked me what I could do. I answered that I was a rich merchant, and therefore had not learnt any profession.
"Tell me,"
said he,
"can you shoot with a bow?"
I replied that it had been one of the pastimes of my youth, and that with practice my skill might come back to me. Upon this he gave me a bow and arrows, and mounting me upon his own elephant, took me into the depths of a vast forest which lay far from the town. When we reached the wildest part of it, we stopped, and my master said to me,
"This forest swarms with elephants. Hide yourself in this great tree and shoot at all that pass you. When you have succeeded in killing one, come and tell me."
Saying this, he furnished me with a stock of provisions and returned to the town. I now found myself alone in the forest. I climbed up a huge tree, and making myself as comfortable as circumstances would permit, began my watch. That night I saw nothing. But just after sunrise the next morning, a large herd of elephants came crashing and trampling by. I let fly several arrows, and succeeded in wounding one of the huge animals fatally. When the others had retired to a safe distance, I came down from my hiding place in the tree and ran to the town to tell my master the good news. He was well pleased with my success, praised me for my skill, and regaled me with good dishes. Then we returned to the forest together and dug a mighty ditch, in which we buried the elephant, so that my master might secure the ivory in due time. For 2 months I hunted thus, stationing myself in different trees on different days. Not a day passed without killing an elephant. One morning I was surprised to see a herd of elephants which, instead of passing the tree I was on, paused and completely surrounded it, trumpeting horribly and shaking the very ground with their heavy tread. When I saw that their eyes were fixed upon me, I was so terrified that the arrows fell down from my shaking hands. I had indeed great reason for my terror, for an instant later the largest of the animals wound his trunk round the stem of my tree, and with one mighty effort tore it up by the roots, bringing me to the ground, entangled in its branches. I thought now that my last hour was surely come, but the huge creature, picking me up gently enough, set me upon its back, where I clung, more dead than alive, and followed by the whole herd, turned and crashed off into the dense forest. It seemed to me a long time before I was once more set upon my feet by the elephant, and I stood as if in a dream watching the herd, which turned and trampled off in another direction, soon to be hidden by the dense underwood. Then, recovering myself, I looked about me and found that I was standing upon the side of a great hill, strewn, as far as I could see on either hand, with bones and tusks of elephants.
"This then must be the elephants' burying place,"
I said to myself.
"and they must have brought me here that I might cease to persecute them, because I want nothing but their tusks, and here lie more than I could carry away in a lifetime."
I now made for the city as fast as I could go, not seeing a single elephant by the way, which convinced me that they had retired deeper into the forest to leave the way open to the ivory hill. I did not know how I could sufficiently admire their sagacity. After a day and a night, I reached my master's house, and was received by him with joyful surprise.
"Ah, poor Sindbad,"
he cried.
"I was wondering what could have become of you. When I went to the forest, I found the tree newly uprooted, the arrows lying beside it, and I feared I should never see you again. Pray tell me how you escaped death."
I soon satisfied his curiosity, and the next day we went together to the ivory hill. He was overjoyed when he found that I had told him nothing but the truth. When we had loaded our elephant with as many tusks as it could carry, and were on our way back to the city, he said,
"My brother, since I can no longer treat as a slave one who has enriched me thus, take your liberty, and may heaven prosper you. I will no longer conceal from you that these wild elephants kill a number of our slaves every year. You alone have escaped the wiles of these animals. Therefore, you must be under the special protection of heaven. Now, through you, the whole town will be enriched without further loss of life. Therefore, you shall not only receive your liberty, but also a fortune such as is meet for the services you have rendered." To which
I replied,
"Master, I thank you and wish you all prosperity. For myself, I desire only my liberty." "It is well."
He answered,
"The monsoon will soon bring the ivory ships hither. Then I will send you on your way with somewhat to pay your message."
So I stayed with him till the time of the monsoon, and every day we added to our store of ivory till all his warehouses were overflowing with it. By this time other merchants had learnt the secret, but there was enough and to spare for all. When the ships at last arrived, my master himself chose the one in which I was to sail, and put on board for me a good store of choice provisions. He pressed upon me also ivory in abundance, and all the costliest curiosities of the country. We parted the best of friends. I left the ship at the first port I came to, not feeling at ease on the sea after all that had happened to me. I disposed of my ivory for gold and bought many rare and costly presents. I joined a caravan of merchants and after a long and tedious journey reached Baghdad in safety. My first care was to present myself before the Caliph and give him a full account of my embassy and adventures. He assured me that my long absence had disquieted him much, but he had nevertheless hoped for the best. As to my adventures among the elephants, he heard it with amazement, declaring that he could not have believed it, had not my truthfulness been well known to him. I took my leave of him, well satisfied with the honours and rewards he bestowed upon me. From that time I have rested from my labours, and given myself up wholly to my family and my friends.